Lord of the Mysteries. Chapter 794. Short-term investment. Someone else is selling? Klein ruminated over those words without immediately asking. After the servant placed the silver three-layered tray down for high tea and left, he said with a smile, "Ma'am, why don't you purchase it yourself?" Even a blind person knows that loan will place more attention on environmental pollution in the future. Therefore, the coin company, that deal with anthracite and high-quality charcoal, definitely has a promising future. It being worth £500,000 or even £1 million wouldn't be a fantasy. Of course, the premise is that the company's management can keep up with the corresponding expansion. In such a situation, the acquisition of shares in the coin company is definitely a profitable business. If I were you, I'd take it for myself, no matter how much debt I get myself into. Mary used 2 fingers to pick a cucumber sandwich from the bottom silver tray, took a tiny nibble, and slowly chewed before swallowing it down. With this as a buffer, she finally organized her words. Ever since the law to fix atmospheric pollution was passed, the coin company has been rapidly developing. The faces of the shareholders have begun changing. As you know, people who have their sights on money will often have good business sense. And behind them, there are usually some powerful figures at play. If I weren't a member of the National Atmospheric Pollution Council, and had used this to get to know quite a number of nobles and high-ranking government officials, I believe I wouldn't be able to withstand the pressure, and I would end up selling my shares at a relatively good price. I would then leave the stage with a considerably good profit. But even so, most of the shares will quickly concentrate, and I'll quickly lose my status as the highest shareholder, losing control over the company's direction. This is something I inherited from my father. I don't want it to become somebody else's toy. I wish for it to slowly develop into the biggest anthracite and high-quality supplier to Backland, or even all of the Lone Kingdom. Heh, it's not that I haven't tried other solutions. I've pledged my shares and sold my property, investing a large sum of my liquidity into it, absorbing 15% of the shares in secret, as well as requesting friends that I can trust to help. I've obtained a total of 10% of the shares, and together with the 20% I originally had, I hold 45% in total. The current situation is that a minor shareholder suddenly decided to liquidate his 3%, and my friends and I temporarily do not have the money to acquire it. This is a commercial war. This was a first for Klein, who was accustomed to dealing with beyonders. He found it fresh but also unfamiliar. He similarly reached out his hand and selected a sandwich which had high-quality turkey at the bottom of the 3-layered tray. As he ate, he contemplated for about 10 seconds and said, "The shares that you acquire later can also be pledged, right? There won't be enough time. The other party has already provided an offer, and the transaction can be closed at any time," Mary said as she finished the food in her hand. Klein leaned back into his sofa in a relaxed manner. "Why did you come to me?" Upon hearing the question, Mary heaved a slight sigh of relief. "First, you must have brought quite a sizable amount of money to Backland. You wouldn't need to raise funds through different means. Second, you just came to Backland, so you aren't deeply involved with the other party or in other aspects. This also means that I'm not afraid that you would violate the terms of the agreement. Even if you choose to align with them, you'll have to consider if it's worth violating the law. Third, although we've only met once, I believe you are a very dignified and knowledgeable gentleman. Your praise is leaving me a little embarrassed. However, it also means that my acting performance as Dwayne Dantes is effective. At the very least, everyone knows that he's a middle-aged gentleman with foresight and competence, with plenty of money that he has nowhere to invest. Considering the original £16,493 in this magician's £6,000, as well as the £48 provided by Mr. X, I have a total of £22,991 and 5 gold coins. Even if I deduct the £5,987 I owe Miss Messenger, I'll be considered a true tycoon. Many people with assets worth £100,000 might not have that much liquidity." Klein couldn't help but do account of his wealth as he asked with a smile, "Ma'am, what do you wish for me to do?" Mary sipped some tea and said eloquently, "Acquire the 3% shares. But before that, I'll sign 2 contracts with you. The first contract stipulates that I'll forcefully purchase the shares from you in 3 months and buy it at the highest price over this period of time. The corresponding tax will be shouldered by me. The second contract stipulates that we act in concert. In addition, I will make you a member of the board of directors for the coin company. You will enjoy the corresponding perks as you monitor the company's development. This will help you be integrated even better into high society." Sounds like a sure win. It's equivalent to me providing a loan, and Ma'am Mary will repay me with a certain amount of interest and social resources. And compared to a debt agreement, I'll be holding on to the shares of an excellent company. It's more secure. After all, we are considered strangers. Of course, that's under the premise that the coin company itself is all right. This is also why she's making me a director. Klein analyzed the conditions proposed by Ma'am Mary and slowly felt enticed by them. From his point of view, Dwayne Dantes needed some investments. Otherwise, he would appear suspicious. Then, selecting the kind of investment was a rather important problem since it had to be considered that Dwayne Dantes might have to give up everything and leave Backlund because of his operation's failure or success. When the time comes, there's a chance to take away the money, but I can forget about the shares. This kind of investment, one that allows me to quickly recoup my investment, meets my requirements. I might even earn quite a bit. Klein contemplated for a moment before warmly smiling. Helping a lady resolve problems is something that I need to do. Ma'am Mary immediately felt relieved. Just as she was about to say something, she heard Dwayne Dantes' attractive voice continue. "However, I'm rather cautious in regards to any investments I make. I will hire a lawyer and an accounting team to investigate the coin company's situation. I'll try to reach a conclusion as quickly as possible, and if there aren't any problems, we can begin our cooperation. Aside from that, I will also do a divination." Klein silently added inwardly, "Definitely." Ma'am Mary smiled and added, "I'll bear the costs for such expenses." Klein didn't reject the offer as he nodded and said, "How much would the 3% shares cost?" "The current valuation is £9,600, but the shareholder believes that the coin company has a promising future, so it can't be lower than £12,000. Mary gave him the exact details. "Phew!" Klein used a calm and relaxed manner to smile. "That's still all right. Dwayne Dantes is indeed rich." Mary thought as she said, "Dwayne, can I invite you to visit the coin company tomorrow?" "That's exactly what I wish for," Klein replied with a smile. At the same time, he couldn't help but think of something. His former landlord, Stellan Sammer's husband, was likely still a manager at coin company. Yet another familiar face, but it's not one for Dwayne Dantes. Klein felt wistful for some baffling reason. At 8 p.m. there were still crowds of people entering East Borough from the other streets. Fatigue obviously colored their faces. And this continued almost until 10. Emlyn White had changed into a grayish-blue worker's attire, wore a cap, and hid himself in the alley of the Backlund Bridge area, while observing the poor that sauntered back and forth. Although he didn't have any experience in disguising himself, he had eyes and brains. Just a short observation was enough for him to discover the problems with his attire. The most important point was that, compared to the poor who had dirty and ragged clothes, the work attire he had bought in the afternoon was too new and clean, easily attracting the attention of others. Emlyn thought for a moment, returned to the dark alley, and reached out his fingers. Using what he had seen, he began tearing open the areas that were easily damaged. Then, he observed his surroundings as his facial muscles gradually distorted into a grimace. With a look of contempt, Emlyn came to the wall, closed his eyes, and began dabbing the dirt onto his clothes and pants. The smell of coal, the smell of rotting mud, the smell of PP*SS. Emlyn subconsciously extended his palm away from himself, as he covered his mouth with his other hand. He nearly vomited. At this moment, he realized that having an extraordinary sense of smell wasn't necessarily a good thing. After a few minutes of excruciating torture, Emlyn finally finished his disguise. Even his handsome face was stained with coal. With this disguise, he hunched his back and slipped into the crowd, quickly entering East Borough without garnering any attention. As he walked, Emlyn realized the problem. He wasn't familiar with the roads at all. He had no idea where Limestone Street or Beluga Whale Street was in East Borough, while most of the street signs had already been damaged. An assassination attempt really is a troublesome matter, Emlyn mumbled as he began asking around for directions. After nearly an hour of hard work, he finally arrived at Limestone Street. The streets were narrow, with the buildings on both sides leaning close to each other. Even in the day, it appeared dark. At night, it gave off a terrifying sense of creepiness and darkness. But to the sanguine, such an environment wasn't bad. The only problem was the dirt and messiness. After spraying a medicine that eliminated his scent, Emlyn walked into the condominium at Unit 6, went to the third story, and approached the public washroom with his nose pinched before standing outside the room of primordial moon believer, Argos. Emlyn cocked his ears to listen for a while before he stopped pinching his nose in puzzlement. He nearly fainted from the stench wafting over from the washroom. It took him a great bit of effort to focus his gaze on the room. His sense of smell told him that there wasn't anyone inside, nor were there any corpses. He moved away? Or he isn't back? Emlyn muttered silently in a daze. He never expected his hunt to be so unsuccessful. After reining in his emotions, Emlyn left the condominium and rushed to 19 Beluga Whale Street. This time, he was delighted to discover that someone was home. Gallus Kevin was home. At that moment, Emlyn caught the scent of another person. It was very identical to Argos's apartment at Limestone Street. 2 people. There are 2 people in the room. Argos isn't home because he came to Gallus Kevin. 2. Emlyn's expression suddenly froze. He wasn't worried if it was 1-on-1. But if it was 1 against 2, he was still a little fearful with Lamino's travels. After all, the 2 of them were artificial. Vampires with rather significant strength,